Welcome back everybody, I hope you're all amazing. On today's video we have two new pedals from Sonicake, their Levitate 2-in-1 delay and reverb and their Warp Dimension multi-mode modulation pedal. The Warp Dimension lets you select between chorus, flanger, phaser and tremolo. There are 4 controls for level, tone, rate and depth. You've got a bypass foot switch and a tap tempo foot switch. On Levitate, the delay section gives you separate controls for the wet and dry signals. Then you've got feedback and delay time. If you hold down the delay bypass, it will give you access to tap tempo on the delay. The reverb is pretty simple. There are 2 controls for reverb decay and reverb level. If you hold this foot switch down, it will turn bypass trails on and off. So some pretty sweet features, especially considering these retail for a little over $50 US. There's just one thing left to do. I'm testing a modulation pedal. I have to play the Alex Lifeson chord and we need to dial in some Rush style tones. So let's go. The first thing that I notice about that is the depth control gets pretty heavy pretty quickly, so keeping it around noon and lower, sort of no matter where the rate is. The tone control is pretty important on there as well. You could hear that with the tone low, it gives you more of that kind of warm 70s boss chorus thing. As you crank it up, definitely sounds a little more like a kind of 80s style digital chorus on there. So I'm gonna roll with those settings for the chorus. Let's just bypass it. Let's hear some delay on here. Like I said, you can hold this down for tap tempo. There is a delay time control and you've got separate wet and dry levels on there. I'm not sure if it's analog dry through. It doesn't mention it, so I'm gonna say no. If they don't mention it, then it's probably not on there. At this price point, I wouldn't really expect it either, but let's just bring in some of this delay. That's got quite a nice modulated thing going on there, and there's definitely a little bit of low and high pass filtering on that. It's not just a straight digital delay. It sounds pretty good. Let's crank the feedback up on this and let's see how much delay time we can get. I think it's around 2 seconds. So quite nice for the long delays. It's got a pretty sweet sounding slapback, especially the way it's voiced with a little modulation on there and with some filtering. Again, if you hold this button down, you will get access to tap tempo in here, so you can just time your delays that way. Let's very quickly check if it will self-oscillate with the feedback all the way up. So the filtering on there stops it getting into that kind of runaway analog delay style self-oscillation, which is fine. It is kind of fun when pedals do that if you want the option on there. And the tap tempo, like I said, it's just fixed to a quarter note subdivision in there. Would have been cool to have like a little switch so you could do dotted eighth notes with the tap tempo, but am I asking too much at this price point? I don't know, let me know in the comments. Let's hear the reverb now, then we'll hear the flanger, the phaser, and the trem. So reverb, 2 controls, pretty hard to go wrong on this one. It doesn't get too crazy with the decay all the way up. You know, you're not going to get big sky style tones out of this, but I kind of like the more subtle settings, like basically everything around 9 o'clock is nice on the reverb. We'll just quickly flick the delay off. Let's hear the flanger, the phaser, and the tremolo now. So I'll actually let you hear the chorus and the reverb, and then we'll hear the others. I want to hear this with some crunch now. We will go back to the chorus with some crunch. I've got Levitate bypassed at the moment, but that flanger is basically doing a 100% wet flanging thing, and you can hear that the level control controlled the overall amount of effect coming out of there. So let's click it back in and just hear it with some dirt, then I'll switch over to the phaser. Thoughts on there. I like the chorus in front of some dirt like we just heard it. Out of all those modes in front of some dirt though, I think I like the phaser the most, whether it's with the rate up quite high for a kind of uni-vibe style thing or whether it's a little bit lower for that Van Halen style thing with some rhythmic delay on there. I quite like the trem with some of the reverb as well. That's a classic combination. My only criticism of the trem is that you can't really get the depth up to 100% and do a choppy style thing in there. There's always some dry signal. I've connected these after some gain now, so I want to use the chorus just to add some grease on there and then the delay setup for a slightly longer time for a lead style delay on there. The delays are nice and filtered, which makes me think that they're going to sit quite nicely against some lead guitars, so let's hear it. that definitely scratches the itch for some grease when it comes to those lead guitar tones. For me, I really like the voicing of the delay on Levitate. The chorus is pretty sweet at the more subtle settings on Warp Dimension. I like the phaser on Warp Dimension as well. And the reverb, while it's pretty basic, is not too bad for a set and forget reverb. At the price point, with the form factor and the fact that they look pretty snazzy as well and will hang with most of your other pedals, whether they're cheap pedals or expensive pedals on your board, I think is kind of a nice touch on there. It's one of those things where they certainly don't feel cheap when you take them out of the box, you hold them in your hand. And furthermore, these actually came with some Velcro in the box if you want to attach them to your board, which is, again, a really nice little touch on there for something that essentially is an entry-level price point. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below on each of these. I'll put links in the video description. And again, thank you to Sonicake for sponsoring this video. If you like what I'm doing on my channel, check the video description. You can get some free stuff, you can support what I'm doing, you can listen to some of Ragdoll's music, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll see you all next time. Let's play around with some grease some more.